Welcome to another episode of The Read Pile, and before I close out on Hickman's Fantastic Four with Volume 4, I just wanted to briefly touch on Hickman's S.H.I.E.L.D. series. I never considered this to be in continuity. I didn't think it was intended to be, but I did run across one random guy on the internet who had a Hickman reading order, and it started with the Secret Warriors and included S.H.I.E.L.D. before moving on to Fantastic Four and Avengers and Infinity and Secret War and all that stuff. S.H.I.E.L.D. was interspersed within the Fantastic Four stuff, which I find strange, but whatever. If it got me to pull it off the shelf and reread it, I will take that opportunity. Now, I only had Volume 2. It is a 2-volume series. I bought Volume 1 off of eBay, and it arrived yesterday. Kind of beat the shit, so I will be dealing with that seller. But I had read this as single issues as it was coming out. There was a multi-year break, so it started... this was a 6-issue series. This was intended to be a 6-issue series. 4 of them were published before this, as I said, years-long break, and then it finished with 5 and 6. I didn't bother buying 5 and 6. I'm like, well, I'm just going to get the collection and read the whole thing because I'm going to have to refresh myself on what happened. And what does happen is it starts with a team-up of Nathaniel Richards and Howard Stark, which I love them together. This is actually my mental image of Nathaniel whenever I think about him. But in essence, S.H.I.E.L.D. is a multi-millennia old organization. It dates back to Imhotep, I believe. So just thousands of years. And the greatest minds of mathematics, science, art have been a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. We have Michelangelo, we've got, well, here it is, Da Vinci, Galileo, Newton. As I said, Michelangelo is involved as well, and Tesla is in here, and added to those are Howard Stark and Nathaniel Richards, and it's just a blast. It's really fun. It is extremely strange, and I really enjoyed it. Here, it's a fight with Galactus. There's wiring. It's crazy. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it the second time through as well. The art is spectacular. But, as I said, I never considered this to be, in continuity, and when I ran across this random guy on the internet's list, I'm like, well, I'll take the opportunity. Since I'm talking about Nathaniel Richards, I'm talking about Hickman, certainly. I will reread this, and it's still bizarre, it's enjoyable, it's extremely entertaining, and I still don't believe it's intended to be in continuity. I think the entire thing leads up to this particular 2-page spread where it's looking at sort of the entire history. And there's a different 2-page spread where we see even further back, we see the entire evolution of humanity. Watcher, the Celestial over there. Got some Kree. But I think the whole thing leads to this 2-page spread, and it's talking about time looping on itself at this point. There are 3 individuals. Let me just look at this art. They're having a conversation, fate versus destiny. I don't completely agree with what is said here, what the decision that's made is. I do have some flashbacks to Escaflowne. If anyone was watching 90s anime, you might know what I'm talking about. But ultimately, here they're talking about an evolving history a unified history, and I think they're talking about comics in general, certainly Big Two comics, but constantly rewriting all that was and is to serve not a singular constant truth, but a greater universal one, this evolving history. And I think it's just talking about how comics retcon themselves on a regular basis. I mean, Marvel has a shifting timeline where you're like, how possible was it for Magneto to really be alive back in World War II anymore? Or which war was Punisher in again? Was it really Vietnam, or was it one of the deserts now? Marvel certainly rewrites their own history. It's just less obvious. DC does it in big events, crisis, whatever. Marvel does the exact same thing. They just are, I think, less obvious about it. But this is, I think, the central argument here is that comics have always had this evolving history, and this is just a really fun adventure with some historical figures. I will point this out as well, because I talked about it recently. I think it shares some things in common with Five Fists of Science in that it's reusing historical fictions to tell a fun adventure story. But whereas this is comedic in nature, this is ultra serious. It's very mysterious. It's not like the rest of the stuff Hickman was writing at the time. It's, I think, leaning more indie than Big Two. It's big, crazy ideas, and everything is not necessarily laid out for the reader. It's not dumbed down. It's just, here's this, accept it, we're moving on. I think this is a very different reader than what he was doing with, again, the Secret Warriors at the time, which itself was pretty wild. If I remember correctly, S.H.I.E.L.D. was a part of Hydra, but then Hydra was also a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, whatever, dude. Whatever. This is fun. It is recommended if you can find it. Don't buy shit on the internet, by the way. If you can help it. But yeah, it's recommended. It just, I don't think, was intended to be in continuity.